The gaming keyboard world and the custom mechanical keyboard world have long been two separate hemispheres of the hobby, but in recent years it's been changing. A while ago, we took a look at the Asus ROG Azoth, a decently moddable gaming keyboard with some pretty basic custom keyboard features like gasket mounting and included foams. But there's another very mainstream company that's been crossing over more and more into the custom mechanical keyboard world, Razer. Slowly, they've been adding features to their keyboards like factory lubing their switches with 205 grade 0 and hot swap in the Blackwidow V4 75%. And today, Razer takes the next leap forward in blurring the line between custom keyboards and gaming keyboards, the Blackwidow V4 Pro 75%. But to better understand this keyboard, we're first gonna have to take a look at the Blackwidow V4 75%. Hot swap, partially aluminum case, an FR4 plate, lubricated stabilizers, gasket mount, plate foam and case foam, and pre-installed tape mod. It's pretty clear they're trying to mod this keyboard right out of the box. And of course, you get all the perks of a gaming keyboard, like Synapse and all of its features, high quality well-diffused RGB, and customer support, which really shouldn't be forgotten about. So what's different with the Pro version? Well, you get Razer Hyperspeed wireless and Bluetooth alongside wired connection, pre-lubed screw-in stabilizers instead of pre-lubed plate-mounted ones, a white FR4 plate which should reflect RGB lighting better, the ability to use a 4000Hz polling rate, and probably most interestingly, this is Razer's first keyboard with a screen since the original Deathstalker Ultimate. Lastly, with all this said, what's the difference in price? $100, setting the Pro at $300 total. Let's see if it's worth it. The stock sound is surprisingly good. I think it's interesting that it ends up being this high pitched despite all the pre-installed mods and the FR4 plate, but we'll see soon enough how deep it can go. Unfortunately for this prototype unit, the stabilizers aren't pre-lubed, but even though they're stock, they don't really have much rattling, so I have very high expectations for the final retail keyboards. My main complaint with the stabilizers is that the spacebar sound is kinda lackluster and has this strange high-pitched ping, but I'm sure with lube in the stabilizers, this will go away. But given that the stock keyboard doesn't have any PE foam installed, I'm decently impressed with the stock sound. It's not excellent by any means, but I think it has a lot of potential. The included Razer Orange switches also aren't the most tactile switches ever, but obviously that's a preference thing, and I think they end up being pretty average in terms of the bump size and intensity. The bump is at the very top of the switch, and there's quite a bit of travel afterward, which is made smoother by the factory pre-lubing. And with the case packed full of so much foam, don't expect there to be any sort of meaningful flex or bounce. So overall, a decent experience, especially for Razer, but not one that's exciting. But before we take this thing apart, let's look at its built-in features. So the main difference between this Blackwidow Pro and the Blackwidow V4 75% is the command dial and OLED screen, which can be configured to do many different things. Similar to the Tenet 70, the screen can be configured to show custom animations, images, text, emotes, info about the keyboard or system, and even an audio meter. The dial can be used to quickly change keyboard settings, and of course alongside the mode switcher button, functions like a knob to change volume, music tracks, screen and RGB brightness, scrolling, and zooming. Both the dial and mode button use mouse switches, which I've never seen done before with a knob, and it's actually really growing on me. I think this keyboard, as well as the Blackwidow V4 75%, are trying to aim for a more streamlined, custom keyboard-esque design language. We of course have a cherry lip style bottom area to magnetize the wrist rest, and pretty even top and side bezels otherwise. The side profile is very simple, with a fully flat plastic surface, and of course RGB light strips near the bottom. At the back is the Razer Hyperspeed receiver, a recessed USB-C port on the left side, as well as our mode switcher. Lastly, on the bottom, we have flip-out feet to customize the angle, as well as the For Gamers by Gamers texture on the plastic. I'm glad that the wrist rest is included with the board, as I think the typing angle ends up being a little too high for my liking. Overall, I really wish there was more metal in the build itself, because the price point warrants a fully metal case, and it would definitely help with acoustics when modding the board. One other thing is that the board comes with OEM profile keycaps instead of the shorter cherry profile, which is more commonly found in custom keyboards. Changing to cherry is going to help the sound profile, but unfortunately is going to make it more difficult to find switch and keycap combinations, as there are some switches that have interference with cherry keycaps when put in a north-facing configuration. I'll link a video below that explains the phenomenon and how to avoid it. The reason north-facing PCBs are used in the first place is because the LED placement helps RGB shine brighter, which a company like Razer obviously has to prioritize, so this is a compromise I expect us to have to come to terms with, even in future keyboards. But with all this said, let's see how the keyboard responds to some more custom parts. Starting with just the PCB, I've lubed the included stabilizers, and in here go Holy Bobas lubed with Tribosis 3203. These are Franken switches made with Kazoo Boba U4 Thok housings and Halo True stems. They tend to have a very strong and deep sound profile that I think fits the theme of the stock build. I'll leave the case foam and tape mod as is, and take a look at the magnets used for the wrist rest. I'll reconnect the inner assembly to the bottom case. The ribbon cable is definitely the most annoying part of the rebuild. Now we can reinstall the top case, screw the board together, and I'll install GMK Dracula. Let's take a listen. The modded sound is definitely much deeper and louder, so we accomplished our goal. Even with the plate foam removed, the modded sound profile still has a lot of character, so I'm guessing that the included tape mod is doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. Unfortunately, there didn't look like a whole lot of case space, so modding for flex and bounce is probably not going to yield that much of a result, and I think we only got a marginal improvement with this board. I'm also still kind of disappointed with the spacebar sound, and this is probably just an issue with the case acoustics themselves, and also the standoffs on the plate. Just slightly annoying, as I think the spacebar sound is generally the way to tell if a board is a modded one or fully custom. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the sound profile now. I appreciate that PE foam isn't being used as a crutch in this board, but you always have the option to use it if you prefer. Also, a note from Razer is that the long gasket strips are meant to be customizable, and if you prefer, you could cut them down to smaller pieces to slightly change the sound and feel of the board. Pretty neat. If you've never tried Holy Bobas before, they are incredibly tactile. Tactile to the point of being a little too intense for my daily use. But keeping with the theme of tactiles in this board, they're a really fun switch to use. I think the modding experience overall was decent. It was a little bit more difficult than a regular custom keyboard just because of the amount of tech and components inside the case. But it's not too hard to puzzle out, especially if you just want to swap switches and keycaps or swap foams. The aesthetic of the board also works well with more premium GMK keycaps, and ends up being pretty similar to the GMMK Pro. And overall, I think this keyboard is a decent stock and modded experience, but it's lacking a lot for me to be able to say it's great, especially for a company as big as Razer. We don't have a south-facing PCB, which means limited keycat compatibility. We don't have any other plates offered, which means limited sound profile customization. We have standoffs between the plate and PCB, which means limited flex and bounce. And most importantly, the price point. What concerns me the most about this is the fact that only the top keyboard case is metal. It's standard in most all custom keyboards to have a fully metal case, and most all keyboards in the $300 to $400 price range for that matter. It might not be a big deal to many people, but I think it's something that users deserve to have for this price. But the upside is that you get a full build right out of the box, with solid switches and stabilizers already lubed, which isn't something you'll get from a $300 bare bones custom keyboard. Razer is taking steps in the right direction, but as a gaming keyboard enthusiast, you won't be able to enjoy nearly all of the benefits of a custom keyboard, and vice versa. But ultimately, I think the Blackwidow V4 Pro 75 hints at a larger trend within the keyboard community, one that will bring high quality, customizable, and affordable products to custom and gaming keyboard enthusiasts alike.